Man, this is episode 93 of Manifest Mondays, man. We are the Spot Network. I'm DJ Zenas. That's Diamond. And that's Ramond. And we bomb. but
Great intro.
anyways, man, yeah. So episode 93 of Manifest Mondays, we hear manifesting. Today we're going to be talking about identity versus goals. So I think those two things are separate, but in a lot of ways can be intertwined. And so today we're
Right.
going to be talking about shifting from like what I want to do versus who I want to be, right? I think like identity versus goals. That's a very interesting conversation, a very interesting perspective to just share. Just not letting necessarily your goals define you, or do they define you, right? Should they define you? We're going to
Right.
talk about it. We're going to discuss it. So that being said, uh, would you guys say that like your goals are like identify who you are as a person, or are those things separate?
Ah man, that's a great question, bro. I would say they are separate, but there are some times that your goals can become your identity. It just all depends on certain things you're trying to accomplish. For example, like my fitness goals, when it became my identity, it was a lot easier for me to accomplish, right? Because that's who I think I was, right? I think, oh, like if I believe I'm this fitness coach or this, fitness enthusiast, I think whatever I'm doing is gonna be in alignment with that goal. So whatever I'm thinking about, because that's my identity, right? So I'm gonna do things to like help get there. However, there's some times I feel like your goals are a little bit different from, your identity, right? Let's say if you have a business goal, sometimes you might start like a business in real estate, whatever. That's your goal. You're working towards that goals, and sometimes that goal might not be who you define yourself as. It's just something that you're working towards. So it depends. There are certain situations in which your goals can become your identity, and there are some times that your goals can be separate from who you
Yeah,
are. But what I've learned sometimes, though, just what I'm learning, once you make your goals your identity, it makes it a lot easier for you to achieve those goals. That's what I'm starting to realize now. That's just
yeah,
kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with DG, but I'm kind of on the side that we always talk about atomic habits. Like we are what we do
hmm
for
Right.
the most part, right? So like it's kind of hard to be like I'm not that when I do that, right?
Right.
Because you kind of are, right? Like if you do work out every day, you're fit, right?
Right.
Like if you do, you know what I mean? Like whatever that thing is, if you I talked about like even like somebody like Kobe, right? You play basketball every day, you're a basketball player. like
Right.
like
yeah,
you know what I mean? We are what we do. I think the weird part gets to like when people do things that they don't want to do.
Right.
And then that's like then they have a title on them that they necessarily like they kind of are but don't
Right.
like it. And
yeah,
that's
Right.
most people with jobs, right? Like,
Facts.
not to say anything about anybody maybe like, working at McDonald's or something, but they might not want that to be their title. That's not
Right.
like they just work there. Like I just work there. I'm not a fry cook. I just work
Right.
there. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Right.
but it
yeah,
kind of gets put on us like that's what we are. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I honestly think that's what it's kind of like it's a human response to like understand somebody else by putting a title on. Like I think it's just easier for us to box in like,
Right.
oh, what do you do? Oh, this is what you are.
yeah,
Right.
That's what people
Right.
even
yeah.
ask you like all the time, right? What do you do?
What do you do? Yeah,
Right.
we
Right.
know.
And they're really trying to put it in their mind, figure out where to put you and where you are to them.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
So I feel like it's almost the title thing is more for others, but they really overlap when it's what you do all the time.
yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah. And
Right.
and, and that's the only reason why I slightly disagree with that, because like I do believe that to a degree we are what we do, but to that point of I think a lot of people try to put you in that box of like your identity aligns with like whatever like your career title is, right? For
Right.
instance, I'm an account manager slash recruiter. That's not who I am though as a person, right? That's
Right.
not my identity, right?
Right.
To that same point of quoting, Atomic Habits, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your identity, right? And so I think ultimately, like to DG's point earlier, I think your goals ultimately align with your identity just based on like what it is that you want to do and what you want to accomplish out of life and what you choose to identify as. And so, for instance, I work a 9 to 5, a daytime gig. Like I said, I'm a recruiter and account manager. But is that solely
Right,
like what my that's what I spend majority of my time doing, right? You know, like I
right,
work minimum of 40 hours a week doing that. So that's
right,
honestly what I spend most of my time doing, right? You know, but
facts.
is that who I am? No, absolutely not. So that's the only reason why I slightly disagree with like we are what we do, because like we only do that out of the like the sake of surviving, really, right? You
Right,
know, like you ultimately have to exist, and existing is expensive. So right, that's the reason why we spend majority of our time working. Um but my identity extends so much further than just what it is that I do for work. You know, like my 9 to 5 does not define who I am as a person. A lot of who I am is very much so in that 5 to 9, and even so, just outside of work, just as a whole. You know,
right,
and so I think you do have to separate the two, but in a lot of ways, like I said, they do intertwine, because like I think just understanding that you have to play the game in order to like, you know, get to where
right,
you want to be in life.
right,
And that's just a huge part of it, right? You know, and I think that's the whole point of separating. Like it's separating a goal first mindset to like from a identity first mindset. Like a goal first mindset, I think would be like more so like this is what I want to do. Whereas excuse me, an identity first mindset is more so like this is who I am or who I want to become, right? You know,
right,
so there's it's subtle differences, right? You know, and I
right,
do believe in the power of words. I think the way that it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, right? You know, so the way that you speak that into existence, you know, it's just like I'm not an account manager. That is not
right,
who I'm defined as, you know, as
right.
my being, you know, right? But it's really interesting though.
No, that's a good take. Then can we make an argument saying that we all have different identities then, right? Based on the situation. Because like you're
Mhm.
a father, your identity could be I'm a father, right? That's your
Yep.
identity, right? But you can have other things that define who you are as well, right? You can
Yep.
be a
Hmm.
father, you can be a businessman, you can be an entrepreneur. I think so. What I'm just gathering from this conversation, I believe that we can, yeah, we can have different identities and just play different roles based on the situation we're in. Because when I'm at my 9 to 5, I'm an underwriter. That's
Yeah,
my
you
identity.
are
My
that.
joy.
That
Yeah.
was kind of my point too. Is like you are that when you're there,
Right,
you know.
right.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I'm playing that role, right? So once I leave, when I'm in the business, I'm an entrepreneur. So whoever I'm working with in that business context, now they're gonna refer to me as an entrepreneur, or if I'm doing fitness, or he's a person, whatever it is. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to think like we can have different identities, right? Or it just all depends on like the goals we're trying to accomplish. So identity doesn't just have to be just one thing we identify as, right? Because we are versatile. We have different skill set and different things we can do. So we can just all have like different identities and then different goals that all like tied together and things that we're trying to accomplish, right? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great take, bro. Because I think anything that we do is us for
right,
that amount of time. It's like
right,
I remember thinking about that. It's like we want to say things aren't us, but if we are doing it, then it is us at that time.
correct. At that
You know
time,
what I mean?
right,
So
right,
I do like that the idea of having like different identities in life because at that
right,
time you are that
right,
like
right,
like it's just like I guess when you go to school, like you're a student at that time.
right.
Like
That's your
you know
identity.
what I'm saying? Like, it's not
Right,
like you're gonna be a
Yeah.
student forever, but while you're there, you're a
right.
student. You know what I mean? So I just think that what we do kind of is that, and I think for a lot of different reasons, we just end up doing a lot of things we don't necessarily want to do. So those titles are on us that we don't necessarily like, but for
Right,
whatever reason, we take it on, right? Like it's,
right,
we're paying bills or,
right,
what I mean, that's all we can get at the time, or you know what I mean? Or,
right,
me and Z talked about sometimes you even get pigeonholed into something like, like
right,
after a certain time, like you worked a job and then you worked it for a long time, stayed in that field, then you start applying for new jobs, and it's like, well, damn,
right,
my all my experience is in
right,
what I've been doing. So now
right,
I guess I am that. Like, you know what I mean? I
right,
got to keep applying. You kind of pigeonholed in that unless you make
right.
a pivotal switch, man. So
Yeah, that,
yeah,
that that's
it's
why I
interesting.
believe that's why I believe they are different from our goals, right? Because
Mhm.
like who we are and our goals are two different things. Because sometimes you might have a goal that you're pursuing those goals. It might be for a specific reason. Oh, I want to buy real estate. I want to save this amount to do that, right? But at that moment, I think that could be different from your identity, right? So it's all changes based on place and time. For example, Cardi B at one point she was a stripper. That was her identity when she was at the strip club. People referred to her as a
Mhm.
stripper. Nowadays, she's like a musician or whatever. So now people don't refer to Cardi B anymore as a stripper because that's
Right.
not her identity no more. You see what I'm saying? So I think over time, just based on what we do, like like how life overall, our identity changes sometimes, right? Because if we have kids right now, we're gonna be fathers, right? But we're not right now, So we don't, it's true. We don't identify as fathers, right?
Maybe,
But maybe you see, maybe you see.
maybe.
But for me, not right now. Me and
you
Ramon,
you are
I'm
absolute
gonna speak of
certainly,
me and
without a doubt,
Ramon.
will be a father.
Now we maybe might identify me as being married. So not a father for sure. So I think it just kind of like changed, and that's what I believe is a little bit different from our goals. Because
Yeah.
like certain goals that I'm pursuing, I don't think I'm like, for example, like I'm trying to get some Excel certification, but like I don't think that's my identity, right? Because it's just something I'm pursuing, goals that
Mhm.
I'm pursuing to get to that next level. I don't identify as that. I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, I'm a Microsoft Excel X. I don't know. So I think they can be a little bit different from who we are and things we're
Yeah.
pursuing overall.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing around like identity and goals is the idea of being open-minded, right? That,
Right,
and I think that the thing that I just dislike about oftentimes titles and whatnot is because, to your point, Ramon, is they do pigeonhole you in a lot of ways. Like titles are always just, I think ultimately people just trying to put you in a box, right? Like it's just like, oh well, you're clearly just like you're this, right?
right,
And um it's interesting. Like I said, moving to New York, I think the mindset is a lot different here, where who you are, like I think oftentimes people like asks like, what are your passions, like, right? What are your well, like what's your purpose, as opposed to like just like what do you do,
right,
because sometimes those things aren't synonymous, sometimes they are, right? Like I think
right,
sometimes your title just always doesn't define you, in
right,
certain, I think in certain situations it does, right? Because when I'm at work and I'm an account manager, right,
right,
and you're asking me to do something that like a recruiting coordinator to do, I'm like, that's not my title, right? Like my
right.
title is this, that is
That's not my
outside of my pay
identity.
grade, right? Like I'm like, right? So I mean, there's a point of, yeah, absolutely, that falls out of like the context of what it is that I do, right? So um but it's just it's really interesting to navigate those things, and to both of your points, I think honestly, like your goals should in a lot of ways align with what it is that ultimately your identity is and like what you define that to be, um
Right,
at least at this stage in life, right? I
right,
think we're beyond the stages of like just randomly throwing shit at a wall and just like hoping that something sticks, and like like I
right,
think we've already navigated enough to really know what it is that who we are, what it is that we want out of life, and
right,
ultimately just making every decisions to where our goals should be in alignment with the person that we want to become, right?
right,
I think that's the stage of life that we're at, but that's not always the case for
right,
everybody, right? I think a lot of people are still defining that, and so in a lot of ways I think those two things should intertwine and be synonymous in a lot of ways, but that's not always the case.
right. No, that's
And
a
a lot
good
of
point.
times, I was going to add to that piece is like a lot of times is that like your real goals in your mind is not always career based, right? So like you
Right,
kind of almost more than what you do at work, it's almost kind of like what do you do after work? Because
right,
that usually is almost probably more in tune with like your goals as we talked about as opposed to what we do. It's like what do
right,
you do after work? But people kind of just ask what you do in work. You know what I mean? So I just think that what we do outside of work almost it for damn sure should be aligned with our goals. So right,
right,
like you, like if like we always talk about, if your goal is to be fit and you just chill and watch Netflix all day and never work out and eat
right,
crazy, it just it's not aligned at all. Like then it's just like
right,
almost it kind of separates from a goal to just a dream. Like
right.
like you know what I mean. So I think what you do outside of work should be more aligned with what your goals are. Though I do say that.
Right. This is I think I mentioned this earlier. What I'm just learning overall, just for me personally, once your goals become your identity, it's a lot easier for you to accomplish them. Like lately, right? Because now my identity, like the person I see myself becoming in the future, or now, like I think I'm an investor, right? So now all my goals are like investment related, right? Oh, I need to get this certification. I need to do that. I need to learn more. I need to study more because now I'm starting to identify myself as this person. Same thing as a business owner, right? There is things I have to know. There are things I have to,
Mhm.
figure out, right? I have to put in the time and the effort. Even when I'm tired, some days I have to do the work because now I'm starting to identify as that person. So kind of like based on what said earlier, now my goals has to be in alignment with that. Because at the end of the day, if my goals are not in alignment, then my identity is not true. How can I say I want to be an investor when I'm not investing any money and I'm going out and
Right.
popping bottles and that, like that's not being congruent, right? That's cognitive dissonance. And also one thing Z talked about earlier too is like, oh, people want to put us in the box, which I do agree. But also I think being put in the box, I don't think they're not coming from like a negative standpoint all the time, there, right? Because it's just a way to make things a lot easier. For example, like names, right? Having names makes it a lot easier because if you said Diamond, I know you're talking to me, right? You're not gonna like look
Right.
around like, huh? So,
Yeah.
so so all that makes it a lot
That's
easier.
right.
Same with role. If we have a role, if I know, like, if you're a DJ, we all together. Hey, anybody who's a DJ here, you know it's you. I'm not gonna raise my hand, because I think just like being put in the box sometimes makes it a lot easier. I don't think, yeah, sometimes people are doing it from a negative perspective, right? They want to like undermine you, your knowledge, and all that stuff too. But I
Yeah.
think it's just sometimes people do that just a way to just make things a lot easier. And
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
if you need source reference, or if you need music connection, or reach out to DJ Zenas, reach out to Ramond. It makes it a lot
Hmm.
easier. But there are some times that people just do that to undermine you. Oh, you're a DJ. Why you want to talk about investment? There are
Yeah.
also people who just want to like
Yeah.
undermine your knowledge and your skill set too. So I just wanted to add that to that.
That's a great point, DG. Great point. Because I was kind of thinking that too. It's like there is times
Thanks,
when
bro.
having a title makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like you said, someone's gonna need that. Like if someone's
right,
looking for an investor, you like I took on the title of an investor. You know what I
right,
mean? I have a project I'm looking for investors to take on. If they know you as an investor, they can reach
right,
out to you for that. You know what I mean?
right,
So there are titles that that do make sense. And I think we just usually want them to be the titles that we actually want versus the ones that we don't. But
right,
even
Yeah.
at work, if someone's like, I need an account manager at work, you know what I mean? They might be looking as Z or you know what I mean? You
right,
know, Ramen risk research at work. It makes sense. So
right,
yeah, that's a great point though, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not always
Yeah.
that. Some people do,
right.
like you said though,
Oh
that
yeah.
downplaying shit is some
Oh yeah. People do
that
that
They
all
is
be
the
some
doing it.
time.
bullshit,
They be
man.
downplaying. They
Yeah,
will
but that
downplay.
downstairs was shit like, yeah, you can't be a DJ and investor. Like, yeah,
Right.
why
Why
are you
can't
in
I
this
be
room?
both?
You're just a DJ. I think that's where it comes into it is like when you have like multiple levels to you. Sometimes we hate being like you're just that, you know?
Right. Right. Kind of like LeBron when that lady says "shut up and dribble." You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah,
always
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
the
yeah.
same thing. Oh yeah, just because I'm a basketball player cannot not have like any like political like ideologies or like knowledge. Like is
Yeah.
I shouldn't just like my life is not all about basketball. But I think sometimes like people are trying to be disrespectful, right? They want to like
Yeah.
undermine our knowledge and just put oh yeah. Bro, you're all about fitness. You don't know anything about this. Nah, bitch, I'll do this. So at the end
Yeah,
of the day, people use that. But there are some times too people just do that to make it a little bit easier, bro, to like know
yeah,
who to reach out to. And if I was
yeah,
doing music, I know if I want a song, I'm reaching out to Zenas and Ramond. I'm not reaching out to like Kels, I'm not reaching out to like JB. They're my
right,
bros, right? But I know just by them having that identity, it makes it a lot easier who I'm
Yeah.
reaching to when I need that. So sometimes it's just good to just have that
Yeah.
role.
yeah. And I think it's important to put like to kind of get in front of the narrative of your own title sometimes too, because how many times do you just go through life and just titles are given to you?
Right.
Yeah.
You
Facts.
know what I mean? It's just like you're in class, you're a student. You work for this job, this is the position. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, you have a kid to your father. Like a lot of titles are just given to you. So I do think it is important sometimes to have titles that you put on yourself. I've got in front of the narrative and this is what I wanted to be, this is what I did and
Right.
created it. You know what I mean? Like I shout out to Tanya too. She said your goals shouldn't always be limited to career goals, but like I said,
I
that's
agree.
perfect. Like a fitness when I'm fit should be a narrative you get in front of yourself. Like no one's gonna necessarily help you get fit. Like you got to get in there and do what you got to do. And it's like that's a title that you would put on yourself by yourself. You know what I mean? Not that someone else could really put on you. So I think it's important to just get in front of those narratives sometimes too. You had to make
Right,
yourself an investor. That wasn't just given to you. You had to
right,
invest in some things. You
right.
know?
Right. And also too, when I'm thinking about it too, sometimes once you like, it can become a problem, right? Because let's say if you identify as a certain way, and whenever you want to like pivot and change, that can be a problem because now, oh, people see me as this person. Now I'm thinking about that other career path. So I feel like sometimes once you just have a identity that's in your head, it makes it a little bit harder sometimes if you want to try something different, right? Because at the end of the day, like, oh, everyone sees me as a DJ. Now I'm not really passionate about this anymore. Maybe I want to make film or whatever. Now you like because you had that identity for so long,
Yeah.
it makes it hard. It makes that harder for you to like start a new career path. What
Yeah.
do you guys think
Mhm.
about
Absolutely.
that? Sometimes like
Yeah. Well, to your point, I think just a lot of people just don't like change. You
right,
know, uh, I saw a conversation about this the other day. It's just um, when you're like life is not a linear thing, right? So I think you're always going through different seasons, different chapters of life and whatnot, and so you naturally evolve as a person. And I feel
right,
like oftentimes people's thoughts of you and whatnot don't evolve though. Like
right,
as you evolve as a person, like like
Yeah.
people just see you for whatever. Like some people might just see me as CSU Zenas, right?
right,
Right? Like I'm forever Zenas from CSU, like the DJ, the wild boy, all that stuff, right? That was a certain chapter of my life, and I'm like the version of me now is so different from then, right? And
right,
so um people who like you engage and whatnot, they may not be able to like see that change, and that's totally fine, right? I
right,
think naturally people's like thoughts of you don't necessarily evolve, and that's totally fine. Sometimes they do. Some people are open minded, but I think that's just all ultimately like what it boils down to is like it's hard to envision what that looks like, because it's just like DG, thinking about when you guys were working at what was that insurance place that y'all worked at?
CNA,
Yeah,
CNA insurance.
CNA, right? Like it's just from CNA to now, it's just like, like if
I'm just
man, I
trying to
remember when
think.
y'all was back, man, y'all y'all was over there horsing around, man. But now DG, is working, he's created his own business, he's an entrepreneur, he's doing multiple things, right? And it's just like, man, I still know him from when he was working at CNN, man. I don't want to hear none
Right.
of that. Like he's still probably horsing around just like he was back then, right? But it's just naturally, I think, just how people are going to
Right,
um, think sometimes, and that's not always the case, right?
right,
But
Yeah.
it's just it's hard for people to embrace change. Is all I'm saying.
right,
I
right,
think for all of us it is though. Like, right, just thinking about if like it was somebody you knew in high school and they was on straight bullshit. They
right,
might turn their life all the way around, but if you met them again in life, you might be like, this might not be the dude I'm trying to work with. Like
Yeah,
I
right,
remember, you know what I'm
right,
saying? Like we
yeah,
all do it. And sometimes it's like it's kind of like I think we don't really kind of see the course of our actions even young. It's like people know us for certain things. Was you solid?
right,
Was you always, you know what I mean? Was you not like anytime that you said something was you not about like even if you
right,
do change your life around at some point,
right,
you go run back into somebody else that's kind of just like you
right,
can't. There's nothing you can tell me that will make me want to work with you now, though.
right.
yeah,
Like,
It
because I
makes
just
sense, right?
remember
Yeah,
certain things. I remember how you used
right,
to move, and you probably
right,
did change. I'm glad for you, but
right.
at a certain point, it's kind of like. So
Yeah,
how do y'all navigate that? Would y'all be willing to like somebody that was just crashing out, like that
right.
y'all remember as a crash out? Would if they did seemingly turn things around? Are y'all open to working with them now, or how y'all feel?
I
no,
mean, that's a good question. I would say yes because people I think the past is the past. That's happened for a reason. I think people learn and sometimes they evolve from that. So at the end of the day, if that person has changed and I'm actually saying like something tangible, right? They got something going on. Like, of course, I think I'll be open with working with that person,
yeah,
but I have to like see, more something more from myself. I'm not just gonna believe your words for that, right? I have to see something that you're actually doing tangibly. Then I think I'll be open based on what I've seen, because I think it'll be this service to just hold people based on what they were doing before in the past. Just, I mean, certain times, right? Which that's why it's a good question because at the end of the day, your identity is who you are, because that's what people are gonna identify you as. You know, if you're
Yeah.
somebody who's doing shady stuff, yeah, people are not going to be able to work with you based on that. So it's important to create a good image, a good identity, because like people are going to know you for that. So going back to the question, I would say for me, yes, if that person has changed, I think I'll be willing and open to working with that person if I see some tangible changes for sure.
DG's a better man than I am because my answer is no. My answer is no. Like I think we were just talking about this the other day. As human beings, we naturally skew negative, right? We just
Right,
inherently skew negative. Um, and so to that point, I think it depends on how bad somebody crashes out. Like
right,
I think I absolutely believe grace is a real thing and forgiveness
right,
is a real thing. I just recognize that me and myself, I'm just not the most forgiving person, right? Like I just and I acknowledge that, right? Like I'm working on it. I'm trying to be better about it. But I think it depends on how far negative you skew, right?
right,
If you crash out to a point like where it's just you completely burned every single bridge and um there was a lot of disrespect along the way and all those types of
right.
things and just boundaries were crossed. I'm sorry, like it's just uh
Wait, but not to
yeah,
you
I
though.
think it's great for you to like find whatever it is that helps you get over that hump and really helps you get back to like whatever sense of self that you have again, and I applaud that for you. But
Right.
like disrespect is something I'm just not going to tolerate. And if you like completely cross that line, I just don't know if there's any like recovery from that, right? Because it's just I think it depends on how far negative you skew. If you
Right,
like I understand everybody makes mistakes. I've made my own
right,
like share of mistakes, right?
right,
Mistakes are going to be happen, right? But like if the mistakes are that egregious, no, I'm not like
right.
there's not forgiveness on
I
this
mean,
side.
I mean, it right. It depends on it depends on what the person did, right? But
Yeah.
especially, I mean, it depends, right? But we're just talking about just someone who wasn't for me, like how I interpreted that question was just someone like who was just crashing out, being belligerent, like
Yeah.
not focused, all that
Yeah.
stuff, right? And that was in the past in high school, like
Yeah.
never on always on BS. But now, after years, that person has evolved and become
Yeah.
someone like worthy of like forgiveness, right? They got stuff together. They're actually doing good. So with that being said, I think for me, I'm open, right?
Yeah.
To because at the end of the day, it's like there are sometimes like people like when you come to like Christianity, pastors, they were once in the street, they did all kinds of stuff, and they turn the life around and they have
Mhm.
church. So basically,
Mhm.
like, people still going to that church. So I believe that if you just say, hey, I'm just gonna hold you for that. Back when you were 20s, you used to sell dope, you used to do that, you'd be a prostitute, all that stuff. So now, like, I can forgive you based on that, and the I've changed. I'm not that person no more. That phase is
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Just for me, I just think
Right.
that person is deserving of grace.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I
Well,
think that's
like
I'll be
I said,
open.
and when I say like typically when like how far negative you skew, I think it also depends on like if that negativity like directly impacted me,
Oh,
right?
okay,
Like
right,
I think like like if you deliberately disrespected me and crossed a certain
right,
lines, that's where
right,
it's just
right,
like to your point, like an example, like if a woman was like a prostitute previously in her life and
right,
eventually turned her life around and now she's like running for mayor of the city and like
right,
completely change. That's like that has nothing
right,
to do with me. So I
right.
absolutely like I
Okay,
can look at this person and be like, yeah, like what you put in the work and whatnot. But I think like when you deliberately like cross that
right.
line with me
Hurt you personally,
specifically,
right,
like that's
right,
where I'm
right.
like I
Okay.
just don't know if
Wait,
like if I
wait,
can
wait,
get
wait,
over
wait,
that.
wait. Hold up. So if she robbed you, you can't
Well,
do
that's
it.
what I was gonna say. Like
If she robbed
that's
somebody
exactly
else,
the reason.
it's
Because no, I'm glad you brought this up because that was exactly what I was about to ask DG. So like DG, I ain't gonna say no names, but like we know that you got robbed back in college, right? And you know
Right,
who did it, right? So
right.
if that same person came to you and was just like, "Yo, DG, like, just want you to know, like, look, I turned my life around, man. Like, just this is who I am. Like, are you going like where are you at with that?"
I just put in my life, bro. If you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have said no. But I
Hmm.
just point in my life, if I see that person actually turn their life around and
Yeah,
actually doing something good, I think I'm open to working with that person.
yeah,
Because like I said, I think I don't have like it's not like I have proof for sure, but I think even if I have proof, bro, I feel like just forgiveness is important, man. Once you reach a certain level, just for me, like the person I'm becoming right now, so it'll be hard, but if that person showed me like they actually change to put in the work, I think I'll be open to having that conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think I'll be open. I might not
yeah,
say, I
I'm,
might not
yeah,
agree, but
I'm on
I'll
the
be
other
open.
side.
yeah.
I'm on the other
I
side on
and
that one.
it's
I'm on
funny
the
because
other
like
side.
I was robbed. Well, not like robbed, but like there was somebody that I used to buy shoes from and whatnot
Right.
in high school. And in college, I ended up placing an order with him, and it was like I think I ended up sending them like $300 or something like that. But I had worked with them previously like multiple times, so I
That was
got a
like
respect.
3,000 in college too.
Yeah, that was a lot of money. Like
$300.
$300 in college, that was a lot of money, right? So
With inflation adjusted, fuck, yeah, that's too
you see what I'm
great.
saying? You see what I'm saying? So that person ended up, just ghosting me after that. Like after I sent him $300, like I went looking for him. Like I was really like I was heated. I went looking for this person. I put him to my old high school and stuff like that. Like, yo, have you seen this person around? Like, yo, like I was really, I was like, if I would have seen him out in the streets, it would have been heads on sight. Like straight
And
up, like I'm whooping your ass and I'm taking your wallet and everything you got, right? But now I think about it now, if I were to see this same person in the street, I don't
right,
really think there would be like that animosity. Like I still kind of be like, oh, you still kind of a bitch in like the back of my
right,
mind. But like I don't think there would be really any hostility though. But to
right.
your point, I don't think I would never work with this person
But
again.
what
Right?
if
Yeah.
that person
I would
apologized though,
never.
right?
We were never doing business ever again. Like
Yeah,
Right,
I'm good
I'm
on,
sorry.
I'm good on
Like that's
that
just
too. I'm with
I
Z.
can forgive you and move on, but I'm
right,
never doing business with you ever again.
right,
Yeah,
right,
like I'm cool on the situation. Like I probably can get past the situation. But
right,
for us to have a new one,
right,
that's and
right,
it made me even think like because that's it's almost hypocritical, right? Like we would forgive it if we found out she used to rob other people and take three hundred
right,
dollars from them and do
right,
that, we would forgive. But if it happened
right,
to us, so it's almost like it gets real hypocritical when we start talking about like what if they got our cousin
right,
in high
right,
school? They didn't get us, but they got our cousin. Are we
Yeah,
working
right,
with him now? Like what I'm
yeah.
saying, like and,
right,
and for me, it's like that's still close enough where I couldn't, I
right.
wouldn't do it. You know what I'm
Like
saying? So
it's just not a smart business. Like it's like
Right.
working
Even
like
if they offer to pay you back, like, oh, Z, I'm gonna pay you like 10 times whatever I took from you. I'm
I'm
sorry
good.
at that time I was young, I was dumb, I was in the right mindset. Now I've built this business, I'm doing that. Like, you can trust me now. I'm gonna be better. So
I love
no,
that for
that's
it. I
so
think it would
no.
make
Even
like you would really it would really take a lot to get onto like my good side. I like because
right,
like when you cross a certain line in business, it's just really like it leaves a sour taste in your mouth where it's just like
right,
like business is something that we all should take very seriously, right?
right,
You can horse around and all that shit and like in personal lives and all that shit, but like business is business, right?
right,
Um, and that's why they say typically you shouldn't mix business with pleasure, right? For those reasons, because business is serious.
right.
Um, but like, you wouldn't work. Would you work with an accountant who you knew like embezzled millions of dollars from their previous like client? No, like right? Like it's not a good business like
No, I
model,
agree. It
right?
makes it
Like
harder. I agree.
it doesn't make sense, So
Right, right,
um, you know, we talk about it all the time, right? And like to Ramon's point, you can't be hypocritical, but I also like, they always say, and granted, this is a narrative that should be broken, but we talk about it. History always repeats itself, right? We talk about it in the stock market and everything like that, right? And I'm not saying that like somebody who was a thief will always be a thief, right? Or
right,
something like that. I think there is the opportunity, there is the ability to break the to break the cycle and ultimately to like shift that narrative, but it takes a lot to get there, right? If
right.
that's all we knew you, and like I said, it depends on how far negative it skews. Because like if not only you were a thief, but you also like thieved from me specifically, I'm like, fam, I'm just never doing business with you ever again, right?
Right,
yeah.
And like it takes a lot to like earn that respect back from me, like because I'm always
right,
give respect, but like
right,
once you dishonor that, like it's
right,
gone,
right,
right? And so even if they paid me back plus interest and like was kissing my ass and all this stuff, like I'd still just be like, man, like cool.
What if
Like I appreciate the gesture and whatnot, but we probably gonna have to have several
right.
conversations before we could ever like really get into the weeds of this.
what if they were in a position that like almost would be advantageous for you to work with them, right?
Right,
Like let's say and they had that conversation with you like, yo, in high school I was on some bullshit, man. Like really, like there was some stuff in my family life. We was down bad. Like, you know what I'm saying?
right,
I did, I don't feel good about taking the 300, but it was that or we was getting evicted. Like they had a
right,
real conversation with you
right,
about like you didn't know this shit, but it was bad. Like I'm sorry about that. And then the situation is kind of like they now work at like Universal, and they're trying
right,
to like they have like but they want to license your songs to certain things
right,
and do like a partnership with. Is there ever a situation where you're like,
right,
all right, man, like you know what I'm saying? Like
right,
where you at with
Yeah,
that, Z?
it's a good question. I think it depends on the approach, right? I think we talk about that all the time. Is like, and I say this to say because I also recognize not all business is good business. Right
right,
at
Hmm.
the end of the day, like I absolutely acknowledge that, and I think if they were coming from a perspective of like, if they approached me like, hey, like, look, I fucked up. This is what I did, but like, this is what I'm doing to like
right,
shift that. Like I'm hoping to like ultimately earn your trust again, like,
right,
or at least like just try and redeem myself more than anything. Like maybe I won't earn your trust, but like, look, this is, I acknowledge that I did this, and this is me just trying to right my wrong. I work for Universal now. There's actually a sync opportunity where I feel like one of your songs would be a really good fit, and ultimately they're paying $25,000 for this sync opportunity. I can pitch it to like um the head of sound, like in the head of music over, for this particular movie, that they're working on right now. All I need is your blessing, right? Like more than anything, like, I think if they approach me in that manner, I might be like, all right, cool, like let's have a conversation, right? Or maybe if like they were like, look, I already pitched your song and they want it, right? They want it, and I like it's really just like up to you, like whether or not you want to take this opportunity. But I just wanted you to know that this is me just ultimately trying to right my wrong. That's a completely different approach, right? Like I think um it truly just depends on how they engage, right? And um because like I said, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it too, right? But just I acknowledge like not all business is good business, right? And so like I think it really depends on like how they approach me about this opportunity. So I'm not
Yeah,
saying that it's just an absolute no, but
right,
it's definitely I'm definitely gonna put some thought into it. Like, all right, cool. Like, I appreciate this, and you know, granted, we all made mistakes, and I
right,
made my share of mistakes, and cool, but like, let's have a conversation, like, and I appreciate you approaching me with this. Let's talk about it, right?
right,
Um, yeah, so I think that's where I'm at with it.
I
I'm
feel
not completely ruling it out, but it depends on the approach.
right.
And I think what it's coming down to is like the harder you crash out at any point in your life, the harder it is to rebuild that new identity.
Absolutely,
You know what I mean? And just with
absolutely.
some people, you just won't be able to, no matter
Yeah,
what.
it's hard. I agree.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Like if you crashed out and murdered somebody, like man,
Yeah.
like that's you're gonna forever be labeled a murderer, right?
Yeah,
Like, and it's just like, yeah, like
Sometimes though, you gotta think about it. There's probably a barber somewhere did 20 years in jail, and you know what I'm
right,
saying.
yeah,
But then after that, turned it around and
right,
been 10 years a barber. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I don't know. It's just a longer amount of time before
right,
you could write it. You know what I mean?
right.
yeah,
Because I do believe that sometimes people actually learn from their mistakes and actually be better. And there are some people who actually say, I'm different now. But they are not really different. There are
yeah,
always those people who like fake, like sneaky and all that. But I believe there are some times people actually learn from their mistakes and their past. They're like, you know what I did was fucked up. I shouldn't have, steal that money. We were in business together, but I was being greedy and I actually learn from that. And then if I want to like right my wrong and be better, I think for me, and that's what I'm saying more open, especially if they're not faking it, right? Because there's
yeah,
some people who will be faking it. Yo, bro, come on, man. Like at the end of the day, then when you get back in business with them, they're doing the same thing. So for me, it's more about actually if people are actually serious about their time. Like if someone went to jail for like robbing a bank and they did 20 years, right? And now they're back. I think they already did their time. It's not. I shouldn't still be holding them to that standard of that, well, bro, you rob a bank, so I can do that with you no more. Because I think the past 10, 15 years of track record has shown that this person actually turned their life around. So for me, I know, like you said, it's hard, man, just knowing that, just who we are. that's going to be in the back of our mind. Maybe this person might turn back on me. And you see that all the time. There are people who did their time and murdered people and they let them out, and they did the same thing again. So always people can like switch back to that point at one time where they were being bad. So there's always a possibility of that. So and that even people who are known who never done it before can still like hurt you. They are friends, y'all been good together, never did you wrong, but there's a possibility that they might slip out and do something wrong too. So we never know, right? Because we are human
Mhm.
beings. Just for me overall, just by if I see like action and people have changed over time when it comes to business and all the thing, I think yeah, you're gonna think about it, but it's not something that you're just gonna let go for a while. You're
Yeah,
gonna think about it, but I think for me, I think I'll be open, because that was your identity before. But now, like we were talking about earlier, over time we change, we create new identity. Maybe we evolve. Maybe the situation we're in. I was in the situation. I was in the house. Everyone around me at that time, maybe that person they were just like just having bad influence. Over time, that person changed. They evolve. So I think it'll be disservice just to keep holding that person back to who they were before
yeah,
when they're not that person no more.
yeah. I agree with what Kel said.
What did he say? You want to read it?
Even if the person isn't worthy, quote unquote, being the more mature or bigger person is less about if they are deserving of a second chance and more about us living on a higher frequency and keeping it positive. I do
Right,
agree, right? Like, I think there's, like I said, it depends on how egregious the error was, right?
right, right.
There's just certain things that just will
I
never be
agree. I agree.
overcome. Like if you was
Fact.
out here raping or like
Right.
doing shit like molesting kids,
Yeah.
like there's never
Yeah.
any coming back from any of
Right.
that.
Oh
Like
yeah.
nah, like
Facts.
I don't
Right.
care what you did.
Right.
Like I don't care if you found Jesus, no none of that. Like I'm sorry, like nah, like there's just hell nah,
Right.
right? I think it depends on how egregious the error is,
Right.
but I do absolutely believe that we should always speak as much positivity and whatnot into others, into ourselves and whatnot, and so of course I think there's always going to be the exceptions, but I think just ultimately to what Kels is talking about is just when you vibrate at a certain frequency, there's just like a lot of things like you just understand that like negativity and whatnot, you don't buy into it a lot. And so
Right.
I think there is a lot more opportunity for grace and whatnot, but um I think I'm just a big person on accountability too. So I think as long as like people are willing to take accountability for their actions
Right.
and
Right.
whatnot, then absolutely like forgiveness and grace and all that should all that should come into play. I think more than anything, right? But ultimately, that's why the whole reason for this episode is saying that like this is exactly why your goals should be in alignment with your identity because like if that's the case, then you shouldn't be in these instances. And granted, we're all
Right.
gonna make mistakes and whatnot, but I think when you vibrate at a certain frequency, when you surround yourself with greatness, with great people, with great minds, when you speak greatness and positivity into your own life and into yourself,
Right.
um, you understand that like your identity is it's not just who you are now, but who you are going to become, and
Right.
you recognize that every decision that you make is ultimately getting you a step closer to that, right? And so
Right.
um, that's the whole reason.
Right. And also too, it's important, man, because like you said, people are gonna hold what you do and what you say to a certain level. So it's good to like why are you here to like have a great identity, right? So that way, because like we know a friend, right? Right now he's going through a lot, right? So at the end of the day, going forward, I think that gonna create some problem, makes it a little bit harder for us to work with that person, right? In the long term. So that I feel like it's just important in the sense that identity is important. Like what you do each day, people take account of that. So at the end of the day, like what you say, those things are important. So I think we should create an identity that's positive. Because at the end of the day, who we are, that's what people are going to recognize us for. Right? It's not just what you say, what you do sometimes.
Hmm.
And then like kind of what you said earlier too, I think your goals should be tied to who you're trying to become as well. Because if your goals, for me, what I'm learning, if your goals are tied to your identity, it makes it a lot easier for you to achieve them because now you're like, this is who I am. I'm a man of integrity.
Mhm.
And now whatever you do, it's gonna be like trying to like become that person with integrity. Because
Mhm.
now that's your identity. So I think it's just important for us to like start to actually speak that way, act that way, and just kind of like become who we're trying to be in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Just start acting like that person. I think
Hmm.
it's important right now. Instead of like waiting to be that person and start acting that way. Start
Yeah.
acting like that person you want to be. If you're somebody who's like, oh, I want to get in shape, I want to be fit. What would a fit person do? What would have, like start doing those things, right? I
Yep.
think it's just important to just start to like cultivate that behavior that you're trying to accomplish or those goals that you're trying to
Absolutely.
accomplish.
Yep.
That's a
It's not
fact,
about
man.
where you start, man. It's about where you finish. I say that all the time, and um, I think oftentimes we get in our own heads of thinking that we're just so far removed from the person that we want to be or like the goals that we want to accomplish, and really, it's just we talk about it all the time, the compound effect, right? It's one goal, one step at a time that just naturally over time, creates this massive success, right?
Right.
Um, and
Yeah. I ain't never heard that one. Come on, man. Kills, you still got bars,
I
man. Come on.
I ain't never heard that one before.
Be a pleasure.
That's
Be a
not
pleasure. That's really good to see.
my whole thought process. I don't even know what I was gonna say.
That's a shitty situation, but I love it.
Come on, man. He said, be a plunger, rise above the shit, man. I feel
You
it.
see what I'm
Right.
saying?
Come
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Oh man. Um
No, but we getting close to that hour mark though. I think we should like kind of like wrap this up here in a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. Uh would you rather? Um this is Spot Network, man. We always gonna put y'all on the spot. That being said, we will hit you with a would you rather that really makes you really gets you going, really gets you thinking. That's the whole purpose of this is we're not just manifesting, we're really like trying to challenge your way of thought, of thinking, and so that being said, today's would you rather, kind of being around the idea of identity and goals is would you rather be someone who achieved all of your goals but were never remembered for anything, or someone who was labeled as the GOAT, and I think from the perspective of the general consensus, like you had it all, but really, I guess you were just never financially successful.
Mm.
So, would you rather be some? I would say it again. Would you rather be someone who achieved all of your goals, but were never remembered for anything,
By
or
anyone. By anyone?
by anyone, or were you someone who was labeled as a GOAT, but you were never financially successful?
The good in what though?
Whatever you want it
Whatever
to
it
be.
is, whatever you wanted to be, whether you wanted to be the best entrepreneur,
Yeah.
whether you wanted to be the best
How can you
athlete.
be the best entrepreneur and not be successful?
Well,
Yeah. No, but
because
I like the question. I was just thinking how.
I think people can fake the funk, right? Like I think a lot of
Right.
people, especially with social
Yeah,
media and
you
whatnot
labeled the
nowadays,
GOAT. You're
a lot
labeled
of
the GOAT.
people like are like, yo, like
Right.
this person is massively successful, but little did you like. It's a prime example. Is like
Right.
Michael Jackson, right? Michael Jackson was probably like one of the most successful artists of all time, but like like they said that when he passed, I think he was like millions of dollars in debt or something like that. Right? So
But he was still financially successful though. Before that, he was still at the pinnacle at one point. So yeah. Mm.
I'm gonna
Man,
go.
that's
I'm gonna go with option one, man. I'm not gonna overthink it. If I
yeah.
just don't get remembered, I don't get remembered. I seen out everything I was trying to do. Right.
Right.
That is right. Right. I accomplished all my goals, but nobody knew.
yeah,
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think that.
that's cool, man. I just gonna have to not know me then. And it's hard because I do think even people that act like they don't, they want some type of
Right.
recognition, right? Like even
Right.
if people like I don't want to be on social media or whatever,
Right.
it might be like, well, you still want maybe to be recognized by your wife or husband
Right.
or kids or
Right.
like it's just like you
Right.
still want some type of recognition.
Because we're
But
humans, right?
I'm on the side of like, man, if I accomplish the goals and just nobody just recognize it or damn, just is what it is, man.
Right.
I did what I was trying to do.
Right.
Y'all just ain't see it. Y'all
I,
couldn't see
I
the
saw it though.
y'all
I
couldn't
did. No,
see
I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
y'all couldn't see it, man. Y'all couldn't see the vision.
To be honest, I thought the would you rather with a band, would you rather be a plunger or the shit? I was looking forward to that. I was like, damn, that's a good one. Which one would
Shit,
you
I'd
rather
probably rather
be?
be the shit, man, because the plunger just trying to take the shit down. You know what I'm saying?
Well, without the plunger though, you would get it out. So I don't know. No, but like I don't like I'll go just going up with Ramond said. I think that's gonna be me, bro. Option one, because at the end of the
Yeah,
day, in my heart, I accomplished everything. My family are good. My
yeah,
wife is taken care of. My friends are okay. Like I don't care if people don't remember me, because at the end of the day, memories at one point, right? Those who are at the top right now, there's gonna be some point no one's gonna remember them. Legacy at one point, everything gonna fade, right? Everything gonna get destroyed. So I'd rather knowing that yeah, I accomplished everything I was trying to accomplish in my life.
yeah.
My kids are good. My wife is good. My mom is good. My brothers, my friends are good. That's success to me, bro. So I don't care about the notoriety. People don't not
Yeah.
know who I am. So I'll take option one
I think that's
for sure.
interesting because I think we talk about it all the time, right? I think when you boil down what life is, the very essence of it, I think it's purpose and ultimately legacy, right? I
Right,
think ultimately leaving the world a better place than what you came into it as, right? I think that's truly what life is all about, is legacy. Um, so I think it's interesting that y'all chose that option, um, option one,
yeah.
because I would choose option one as well.
Yes,
And And it's not the easiest on this one, but it is when you think about
Yeah,
just like accomplishing what you actually put your mind
exactly.
to versus just being
Yeah,
labeled. So I
right,
think so. I think what we're saying a good way to kind of wrap this episode is that right. Like it is more important what you actually do versus what you're labeled as.
exactly.
right,
Yep.
right.
You know what I mean? So it's just it is.
And
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 that,
I honestly like never cared about like fame or any of that anyways. Like
right,
I said, I always wanted to be successful and
right,
not I want to be successful, but I don't want to be famous.
right,
It's just unfortunate. Like I think in like music and entertainment, those things just kind of go hand in hand. But yeah, like I mean, at the end of the day, if I was able to accomplish everything that I ever set my mind out to do, um, whether anybody remembers me or not, I think it's ultimately what you feel about yourself. And like I think like at that last moment in life of just like really reflecting and like like you're about to take your last breath and just know that you did everything that you ever set
yeah,
out to do. And whether or not people remember you for it or not, it's just,
it's
man,
cool.
like there probably couldn't be any more fulfilling moment or whatnot in life to just know that like that last exhale, like, man, I did everything, I did it
Right,
all. And whether or
right,
not people remember me for it, man, shit, I know that I did. Like,
right.
and that's ultimately like what brings me happiness.
I
So
mean, I would argue and say that people are going to remember you, right? If you did good, it's not just going to be at the magnitude that we talk about other celebrities, but there are people, especially people in your corner, your friends, those people who are close to you. Maybe it might be one or two, three people they're going to remember who you were, but it's not going to be at that magnitude. Like, oh, you like the goal, whatever. And also, too, going back to the goal argument, it's subjective, bro. Everyone has their own goal, in every sport. So, and they like, why worry about who's the goat? And I know that for sure. Like the people around me are good. I took care of them while I was here, and I accomplished every single thing I was trying to do. And the
Mhm.
entire world doesn't remember who I was, but like my son, my friend, my mom remember me. So for me, and I feel like there are a lot of good people in like today's world, bro, who are like that. They did a lot of great things. We don't know who they are, but there are people out there who know who they are. To this day, they will quote or reference that specific person. So I'd
hmm
rather be that person, man, than just like caring about what the rest of the world people think
yeah,
about me.
exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think the way you answer that question shows a lot about like how much you care about what other people think about you. And
Yeah,
that's something that I think a lot of people, I've met people, personally, like recently, like who just care so much about what other people think of them. And it's just like, man, who cares? Right?
right,
And
right,
everybody functions differently, right? Like I'm not gonna sit here and judge anyone or any particular situation, you know, but I think at the end of the day, like you should really just, the only opinion that matters more than anyone else's is your own, right?
right.
Like, do you love yourself? Are you happy with what you accomplished? Like, do you feel fulfilled? If you can say yes to all of those things, then man, like, who cares about what everybody else thinks? As long as you're not doing anything that like is as long as you're not like acting shaky, right? And like, disrespecting people out here and like doing anything that abuses other people's like values and morals, who cares, man? Like you did it, so
Right.
Come on, big
that's
facts,
it.
fella.
Yeah. Can't say
I think
I You'd
I
rather
think
be
that's a
Allen
good.
Iverson, no rings, but legacy. Who's Zeke? Zeke
I
I have
think
no
that's
Ninja.
I
idea.
think that's his point. I think that's his point.
But
Won a ring with the Nuggets, but nobody knows it. I think
I
that's
don't
his
even know
point,
him,
right?
bro. So yeah, rather be AI.
Yeah.
No, no, no. We basically were saying we'd rather
Now
be
we said
Zeke,
we'd
right?
rather be Zeke. Is essentially what we're saying. But I don't know if that's the best. Like I don't know if that's the best analogy because like Allen Iverson, he
He
was
did
like
still account like you accomplished
he
a lot.
accomplished a
Like
lot. Like yeah, he's still he was a go. He's not labeled well.
I mean, would he be considered a GOAT point guard ever? I don't think so, though. I don't think he would be considered as part of the GOAT.
Potentially, I don't know, but
he got to
he
be
also
one
was
of them. He
he
got to
was
be one of them.
financially successful though, is what I'm saying.
Right. That's what, yeah, he was. So
Yeah,
He
so he
he
has
he succeeded in most standards though. Like so I
facts.
think that's a little different. You
him and
know,
him and like I guess him and Charles Barkley would be in like a similar conversation where they accomplished a lot, like they did a lot, they just never got
The
the
ring.
ultimate goal, like which is
Right.
the championship. But any that being said, any final words on y'all's end?
Nah, man, for me, my final words, bro, it's a new month. Time for us to lock in, bro.
Mhm.
Like just go harder the next 4 months, man. Just see how far we can go, what else we can accomplish in 4 months of like focus, grind, and limit distraction. That's kind of where I'm at right